Yeah. Okay, now actually we are live. Uh,
So unprofessional.
yeah. No, it's all good.
Deeply apologies.
Yeah. Cool. So let's see who's with us. So yeah, hi everyone. Super happy to and very excited to talk about the the future of work and the concept of spaces. And we have an amazing guest with us today, Joao Gonçalves. He's the founder of Studio Valley, and he has like a unique combination of skills, which is between interior design and also product design, and specifically designing furniture products. So, Joao, welcome.
Thank you very
We're
much
very
for the
happy to have you
invitation.
today. We will start in few minutes. We just make sure that we have already like people, and we can kick it off. Okay, I will just check. Okay, we are live. Let's see who is already joining.
Where can we see that? Or where can you see that?
Yeah, I can see it. Uh, yeah, so let's say like we start in 1 minute, like at 5. Like, so we have one person viewing already here. And in any case, like the stream, of course, like will be recorded, and people can view it like later who couldn't, like John or also couldn't complete.
Yeah.
Okay. So maybe we can start already. So Joao, like the most important thing, of course, beyond yeah, like on top, like we see the people who are already joining. Let's get into the topic, but get into you first. So can you tell us a little bit more about your background and your experience with interior design and also product design?
Yeah, so I've been working since 10 years between both fields. I graduated in industrial design, started working immediately in furniture design, always in combination with interiors. So very much working in interior design companies, designing custom-made products for the interiors. From that process grew a bit more the desire of designing spaces as well, of having a more holistic approach, and also foreseeing that when you design a space, you can have more influence and on how people perceive space, rather than just designing on the micro scale. And you see immediately the positive impact on people's lives. So if you design an office, you can see it immediately if people are enjoying it or not. And with furniture, you know, someone buys a piece of your furniture and you never see it again. You never get to talk to that person, maybe. So it's a more direct, rewarding and direct process, I would say.
Great. And so like just to make it clear, so you started at the beginning as a product designer in furniture, like products, and then switched more into the space where you have more impact, right?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I mean the big topic again for people who just joined. We want to talk about the future of work and the concepts of work, but specifically when it comes to space. So what space means in the workplace, at home or be it in the office. And of course, I mean, the last year there has been a huge change and a huge change in behavior, specifically due to the pandemic. So I would love to hear from you, Joao. Can you give us maybe a short summary of what is actually the concept of space in work, specifically before Corona, and what do you think has changed already?
So most people work at a space, a form of space. Could be the three-dimensional space, could be the physical space, many forms of spaces. I guess we're talking mostly about offices and office work and companies, office facilities. In this way, there was a direct, what we can observe in the business is that companies felt like they have to do something, so they have to act, being on optimizing their structure, optimizing their space, monetizing the empty areas, and this requires for sure construction costs, surveys, internal surveys with the employees. So there's some of that type of movement happening. There's also people adapting. I mean, if we zoom out, there is a more speculative, pluralistic approach where we right now don't know where the trip is going. So people are shooting in every direction, and some people are enjoying working from home. Some people are enjoying that is not so nice that their colleagues are across the camera with 3 babies screaming. So there's a lot of emotions, a lot of new experiences for people. So this is a more speculative approach, which will lead, I guess, that the next few years, the next 2-3 years, will be more pluralistic and with a more diverse set of experiences and formulas before a final new trend in the office sector comes in and settles. Like we've had open space offices dominating recently, but before Corona appeared, there was already a certain tendency of the office space getting slightly more private, meaning that people need better concentration spaces, people need better focus spaces, a bit more private areas, especially in jobs that require a lot of concentration, like software engineering, programming. People want to be it's interesting that the human being has this need to feel productive, and because that's what makes them feel like they're accomplishing something in their job, and that's what makes them go home and not with a feeling of frustration, with a feeling of accomplishment. So people want to get their work done, and for getting their work done, it's not just chatting around in the super open space and playing around and sliding in Google Playground, like that. So there was already this tendency coming up again. This provoked that there was already some investment into to this kind of smaller rooms in a room kind of areas, and Corona kind of accelerated that there was an investment directly in technology, like in better microphones, that the meeting rooms have better cameras, better microphones, so that the interactions with the remote people are more natural, so that you don't feel like you have this distance. So there is improvements and developments in different directions, being in technology, being in psychology. It's hard to see if there's going to be a new big tendency coming up and settling in and changing everything. But what you can see right now is that people are appreciating a lot this pluralistic approach, doing a bit what they want and not having a particular formula that they have to stick to. And I think, yeah, some people are enjoying, some people are not, but it's our job to follow it and to be there. And it's super interesting to be on top of the change and to have access to employee surveys and yeah, and in the beginning of a project, for example.
That's, I mean, you said like many things that are, of course, like very interesting. But maybe let's go a little bit into depth, like into the concepts and where they come from. You mentioned that just before the Corona, there was a trend that like more and more workers requested more privacy in the workspace, right? I mean, I live it personally that in open spaces, you always find people like sneaking in when there's like some private space, so that either, I don't know, like work in a quiet space and have a focused work. My question is, what led us to design workspaces that don't answer this privacy? Do you have any idea, like why we got into a space that needs to change?
Definitely have an idea because that is in the history and that is documented. So it came from in the with the beginning of open space. The beginning of open space came actually not with the big Google offices, but with the cubicles, right? So it was just a matter of costs. You put as many people inside a big space, and you reduce how many people, how many square meters each person needs because you don't have walls for everyone. Even though you have everyone has their own walls. So it was. I can imagine that the U.S. I mean, this started in the U.S. came mostly from costs. For sure, argumented slightly and slowly with the idea of promoting interaction between the colleagues. But the truth is that it created a way of seeing work that was not so seen until then, which was that you go to the office and you hang out with the people in your office and you do a casual break and you meet up in the kitchen and you do more things together. You have a more spontaneous interaction. Feels a bit more like normal life and not like going into a room, working there for 8 hours, packing your things and leaving. So it gave people a more organic way of living the space, living and having a social interaction in the work environment. And people enjoyed it. People felt good. People felt good going to work. People felt like they were accomplishing something. And for sure, at some point, got exaggerated and out of rails, and people are now finding the need to fine tuning it or having a few steps back, which I guess it's normal. I mean, some advancements are promoted by the private sector and pushed into some directions a bit to test people, and yeah, and then it's up to the industries to readapt.
And again, like if I understood it properly, so you were saying that changes in the workspace, in the concept of workspace, have been happening. Corona just accelerated some. I mean, it's of course like oversimplified what I'm saying, and maybe if there is one thing that has been radically changed, it seems to be at least like definitely the remote work. And I would love to have your view on this, because I saw like in many places people talk about now a new ecosystem of space services. Basically, before, as a company, you afford like an office, but now during like this pandemic and after it, most likely people will not all people will come back to the office. So there will be a need to be completely remote. So how do you see this hybrid offer in the future? Like what do you expect the workplace of the future to be in a certain way?
Working most of the time or in most of these situations, it's true, it can be reduced to a chair, a computer, a table, and access to internet. So many people found themselves that they don't need to go to the office for that. There will be many, this is what I call with the pluralistic approach, there will be many variations of how these services can happen, and that's where this speculation opens room for a lot of opportunities, business opportunities, because none of these behaviors are documented or studied in terms of social sciences. So it's always good to go in, try out, and document it. And if it doesn't work out, it's registered, and people try something else afterwards. Okay, just to not lose my train of thought. And Corona definitely accelerated that into forcing more the employing entities to reviewing their standards or what has to be mandatory. Or so for sure they can see that many employees can perform 100% or 120% or 80% without being at the office. The direct impact on the companies, for sure, it was the misuse of their own facilities, but most companies, they're trying to see the office right now as a headquarter. So they're trying to provide a space where it would still be attractive for people to come by in particular days or in particular meetings, or that people still feel good to interact with each other at the office, and this would almost work like a motivation for that. For example, you can imagine some jobs that are like we are in Berlin right now. It's the tech scene and the startup scene is very strong. You can imagine that an engineer goes from job to job if someone offers more money and if he does not feel attached to the company. So companies want people to feel attached to the values, to feel attached to the people there, and this can only happen with human interaction. And this is what the spaces have to provide for a company, is to provide good conditions for human interaction so that emotional links can happen. And this will, at the human resource level, help companies keep employees, make employees happy. And for sure, we have to wait how it goes with restrictions and Corona. And but this would be the basic principle. The firm culture and the firm culture gets concentrated into one place, which is the office, but the working facilities get spread out. Some people will like to work remote in Bali or in Thailand and have their space being paid by the employees. Some people will work from home because they have kids, and people work from home just because they don't like to interact with other people. It's not like everyone is super social. But so these things will happen in this period of speculation, and then there will be more of a neutralization of behaviors as soon as a new trend comes in. But I would say that will take a lot of time, because people will take their time exploring their options, and the employees realize that this is very valuable for people, the employers.
If I ask you maybe like what's some of the most exciting new concepts in the workspace that you have seen, or like you're even like thinking about applying? Can you give us maybe like one or two examples, like a concept that is really like new and exciting?
We are doing a project, for example, where the client realized that they had some space that it's not being used, and that this space could also be take some use as a brand space, like a flagship. I wouldn't call it a flagship store, but a space that would be open for the public as well, where the values of the company or the products of the company can be tested in first hand, and this would be something that you usually would find in a showroom in a high-end street, but it's a way of, you reduce your retail presence if you need, and you integrate it in your office, and at the same time your employees get to be in touch with the clientele, and your employees get to be in touch with the final product and test it as much as anyone else on the market can test it. So that was an integration of brand elements. In that case, it's not directly retail, but we saw also some experiences of retail going into the workplace, more of high-end companies coming into workplaces and exhibiting there and having their products there or doing demos. This happened more like at Louis Vuitton and companies like that, that they provided like first-person tests and products with certain companies. These are two interesting examples, and generally, I think the first one is quite horizontal in a way, or it will be one of the things that will happen to more companies, that they don't see their office just as a place for their employees to work, but like more as a representation of their brand as well.
Actually, talking about this, I was a little bit like checking what Airbnb did to build their work culture, and their CEO was like a designer, and he is still like a designer. And one of the things I really like that he did, they tried in their office to design many spaces that look exactly like the rooms that their users like offer in the platform, so that the product manager and the whole company feels connected to the users and not just developing a software solution. And I found it very interesting how, in that case, an office can represent the not only like the values and the culture of the company, but also be connected to the user. I think some shops, I don't remember exactly the brand, but they have the office and they have underneath like the shop, so that always like you are close to the customer. Um, this has been the case before the pandemic. I'm just excited to see what's going to happen in the future, especially the notion of space. I think it will be distributed, as you said. So we will have different options. People can work from home. People can come to the headquarters to have the like personal connection. One specific aspect I would love to have your view on is the products, how they look like exactly, and which needs they answer. And I'm gonna give like two examples. For example, the need of privacy. Do you expect to have some new modular, for example, furniture, like more separators in the work office? Or do you expect, for example, to have furniture that can be flexible so that the space can really be redesigned? So what do you expect in this regard in the workplace when it comes to the furniture design and its functionality?
Good question. So
Yeah.
I think it is to expect a bit more divisions in the workspace, but on a flexible way. So people will want to have the option of still removing them if they don't feel like it's working, or if the way we work changes again in 10 or 5 years. So but this that we're talking about more like at the table level divisions. At the table level, are not really architectural divisions. In terms of flexibility, I think the last 2 years we kind of reached like a very extreme level of flexibility. Or when we are approached with briefings, it's already asking for a lot of flexibility. And what is totally not advisable right now is for it to have very deeply built-in custom furniture. And I was always pro some particular needs of the client. You can only meet if you custom made, get something custom made from the carpenter and built in. But this is right now a risk, and companies, they might believe client that we have, for example, they had a beautiful space that just looked beautiful, but was just always empty. But then there was this huge built-in furniture, seating platform taking a lot of space, and no one removed it from there for 5 years, for 6 years, because it was just so much work to remove it. And finally, they took the opportunity that not a lot of people is in the office to do construction, and we are tackling this and seeing how difficult it is to, and how unfair it is that the company receives such a very tightly built-in furniture that they're not any flexible with it at all. So in terms of flexibility of moving around tables and putting wheels on things, I think we were reaching a good level, or like the extreme level, kind of, so to say. And what now it kind of became a bit like a no-go is like very heavy, big, huge built-in elements, because an office might stop becoming an office in 3 months and might become Airbnb, or might become a hotel, might become a totally different concept. Right now, the flexibility is more applied not at the micro scale, but at the macro scale of maybe the whole facility is not needed. Maybe it has to become something else. Because usually if your company moves from another office to another, they can leave some stuff there for the next tenant. But right now we are really rethinking the space. Do we need so much space? Could we, what other business opportunity could happen here in this space? Could this be a hospital? Could this be a kindergarten? So more extreme flexibility is actually needed for the next 5 years, I would say.
That's super interesting. I really like the framework you gave in a certain way, like of seeing flexibility both in the micro and macro level. Um, and that's indeed like very interesting that what's happening, let's say on a macro level to the market now because of COVID, has affected the way the spaces needs to be designed. I find like this very interesting connection. Do you have any tips to give already to companies who are willing to develop this flexibility? Are there like already like some principles that you can advise? You gave already one, which is not going for a completely custom products. Maybe can you explain this a little bit more, and if you have any other tip, because I find this super interesting, maybe for people who follow.
Yeah, so that would be one thing. If the designer or architect is trying to convince the client that something that is going to cost a lot of money and is super built in and would last for eternity is the ideal thing for their office or their space, it's not. So this is, let's take a step back. So keep your furniture flexible. This means you want to change between you want to convert the room from a classroom to a cinema, to an auditorium. So keep it agile in that way, but keep it also agile in the workspace so that you can grow your team up and down, upscale and downscale. And that on the second example, we're dealing mostly, first and second example, we're dealing mostly with the micro scale. This is the furniture. And at the macro scale, then it's more about the usage of the space and the re-implementation of a new space within a new function within the same space. So you as a company, if you have a bit of space left over, or you're only using half of your office, you might want to sublet half space to a company that could be useful to you so that the synergy can happen. You might have half of your space being a co-working space for your employees that don't want to have a fixed desk. You might have part of your space being a branded space where people can experience and absorb more of the culture and the values of your company. So these are uses that you can have for spaces left over, and for sure it goes also in another direction where if a company leaves their own space, other users can be found at the same space. But I would say best that companies could do right now is to try to engage their employees emotionally, and that means somehow keeping them emotionally attached to the company, providing conditions for them to work and be productive within their own space. Companies should keep flexible, being in the usage of rooms with agile rooms and convertible rooms, as much as upscaling and downscaling the workforce.
That's great. There is actually, I want to jump on this because I think you touched upon a little bit like the topic of identity and the workspace, the identity of the company, or like let's say like the culture of the company. Um, of course, like there are processes, there are events. Can you hear me properly? Yeah. There are processes that allow like employees to be onboarded into the culture and to participate in it. But definitely, let's say the space itself of an office does have this identity of the company and also helps communicate it to the employees and even customers or partners. Um, what do you think? It's a very open question, but how do you think the notion of identity in space will change because now it's very distributed? Now people work from home. Some people will forever work from home, maybe in companies that have no fixed space. Do you have any, let's say, visions in regards to this idea of identity and space in the future?
So the space of the office, let's call it this the place, this bubble where you as an employee, you go and you feel attached to the company. I think this should be a place that you don't find anywhere else. So unlike, for example, there was the trend in the cafes that they all look like Brooklyn with bricks, and this was because there was a need to, this formula was working, so people felt like they have to match it. And I think in the office is exactly the same. You have to go to the office and you have to feel like what you get in the office you don't get anywhere else. Or this is what companies have to give to their employees. This could be in the, could rely on the space organization, could be rely on how people come together, could rely on just the amenities that you as a company provide to your employees. I think it's always good to have people sitting in a big table and socializing and talking and having lunch together. This is not so easy right now. But generally, your place should not look like any other office, or else your employees will go to another office which just looks like the same. So striking for difference, striking for something something that differentiates you from the concurrence, but not in a polarizing way. So you still don't want to restrict the number of employees, or you don't have to have your office all painted in pink just because you are telecom, because not many people will want to work there. So yeah, going back to my visions, I think places will become less homogeneous. So there will be less what you've seen here as a startup trend style, and companies will develop a stronger identity in terms of graphics and in terms of technology, and in terms of the way they interact with their end users and their clients. I think it will just develop naturally into companies refining their personality. Just like when the person grows, their personality gets more established. I think this will happen with companies. And then it's up to the employee to decide, I like this company, I like this person. Yeah. So it also accelerated companies to rush their personality into something better, more acceptable, more needed, and to get out of the safe bubble of looking like the other ones.
I see exactly the point here. Maybe one last question before we move into questions, if there are like any questions. Again, related to an insight like that you mentioned before, which is now there will be more and more a need to design for flexibility, right? To adapt basically on a micro and also like macro level. And also you said maybe an advice for companies is not to over customize, especially when it comes to the choice of products that they want to have. Um, I just want to bring here like a paradox or a little like conflicting, like a conflict between two notions, which is in a certain way the need to be special as a workplace for the company to express its identity, which needs a little bit of customization, and in the same time this need of rising flexibility in a certain way. How can you for example solve this, or how do you think like this can be solved, that in um, that we need more flexibility, which maybe will lead to less customization, and in the same time that the global trend is personalizing all the commodities, all the spaces and everything?
That is a paradox that has been ongoing for sure, and it's not just new to Corona. So this the need for Corona flexibility just makes it that you have to really find your opportunity to where to invest your custom-made elements, and you still have to leave room for interpretation, or you have to leave room for flexibility somewhere else. Sorry, but in your brand moments and your brand spaces and the place where you want your people to feel emotionally attached, you can go for customization, and this will be the things that people will not see anywhere else. But there has to be a smarter way for creatives, designers, architects to make a balance between the custom-made and the flexible, because this has been in the past sometimes, from the creative side, a bit exaggerated. And this has to be a bit toned down and a bit seen in a more sustainable way for the next 5 years.
I think that was a great way to close a little bit like our discussion. Again, I mean, we went through a lot of questions and a lot of topics, and the last sentence you said is finding a balance between flexibility and custom design to design a space that stand out, and also that takes in consideration sustainability. Maybe we haven't touched upon it a lot, but that's another a big topic. So now we open the floor for the questions. If anybody has a question, please just write us a comment, and we will be Joao will be more than happy, of course, to answer it. Let's see if there are any questions. Yeah. Maybe like yeah. So we will take around let's say like 10 minutes for questions, but in between, Joao, maybe we can use this opportunity to talk about this topic, like which is sustainability. I mean, it's a huge topic. I didn't want to touch upon it because it can take forever, but just having some insights about how sustainability is already getting into the workspace.
Sustainability is getting into the workspace a lot via the employees who demand it, which is great. It's getting into the workspace by the designers and architects, which are usually creatives that are from the creative scene who are more prone into that. It's meeting some resistance for sure from the construction sector that is not prepared for that. So sustainability is coming from the people, and it's great to see. It's great. I was talking with another consultancy that I was doing. I was talking about how we are implementing a circular approach in a project, and the interviewer was asking me, "But where does this come from? Is it like a new DIN norm? Does everyone has to do that?" And no, it's just people. They feel like they cannot not do that. A lot of people they're doing it actively, and they're convincing their clients to do it like this. And you know, if you, it's a very easily negotiation in front of a client. If you're on a table with 8 people, if you have the sustainable version and the non-sustainable version, no one can say in front of 7 other people, look, let's take the non-sustainable version. So there's a bit of a peer pressure there, which is great, and we as creatives should use it. It comes a lot from the client, from the employees as well. It comes a lot with circular economy, with new rental products, rental tech. Companies like IKEA start offering rebuying processes. IKEA being, in case many people don't know, the biggest office furniture supplier in the world, even though they're not office furniture company. So yeah, so it's coming. I think we are great agents, the designers and architects. We have a big influence on it. And I think the biggest difficulty is actually to overcome the procedures and the processes of the construction sector. That has been the hardest part until now. So it's I would say the best we can do is to create a movement and to do it all together, to have a bit more strength, and little by little we have to pick our fights. Our fight is more into circular economy. Other companies will be more into the sourcing or into the natural materials, and other companies will be more into the local processes. But we have to pick our fights and stick to them and support each other. I would say that's like it. But it comes a lot from both the agents, being the designers and architects, and the employees, the people who work there.
Definitely. I mean, we hope that the transition to a sustainable workplace will happen much more faster than what's going on now. But I completely agree with what you have just said. Joao, I think we're coming soon to an end. Before we close, I just, of course, want to thank you first. And thanks everybody who was watching our stream. But can you please tell us where people can find you, or if they want to reach you out, what's the best way to do it?
You can go to our website, www.studiovale.de. You can go on our Instagram, studiovale.de. I would say that's our strongest channels. You can get in touch directly with us on LinkedIn. You can find a bit of our work there. It gets updated once in a while. Yeah, and apart from that, once in a while, you might see new furniture design popping out in the market by designed by me. That relies always on my need for expression. Yes, so I would say that's the best chance to get in touch or to know more about our work.
Great. And maybe actually you can give us some links and we share about them in exhibits so that people can directly also see it, people who see. We can directly connect, to your product designs and also to your website. But again, Joao, thank you so much for your time and thank you for the valuable insights. I really enjoyed our discussion, and I say to the next talk about space and the future of work. And yeah, thank you, everybody. Ciao, ciao.
Thank you very much. Bye.